Good evening, everyone. My name is Heather Murphy, and I want to thank you all for joining the Street Transportation Department's virtual public meeting about the 3rd Street Safety and Mobility Improvement Project. We genuinely appreciate your patience with us because we're striving to engage our communities differently in light of the pandemic. At this point, I'd like to introduce our Spanish language line host and allow Albert Granillo to give you the Spanish language line number. Albert, you're unmuted.
Hola y gracias por llamar. La línea de español, si le gustaría participar en la línea de español, por favor marque el número 602-534-1000. Siguiente marcaría el número de la Junta, que es el 63519, siguiendo por el número del asterisco.
Thank you, Albert. My name is Heather Murphy, and I'll introduce our panel of speakers. But first, let me call on Street Transportation Director Keeney Knutson. Keeney?
Thank you, Heather. And I want to say good evening to everyone. And I want to say thank you for being here. As Heather pointed out, community engagement is a very important part of what we do. Each and every project we have, everything we work on. And so and during this time, we're happy to be able to have a tool like this to be able to allow people to participate even in the current pandemic and the public health situation we're in. But before we get to the more details about this project, I just wanted to say how important this project is for our department. It's a project we've been working on and planning and working on for a number of years. And as I mentioned, community engagement is important to our department, but especially so for this project, this particular project. As evidence, we've had a number of public open houses and meetings on this project since 2013. Tonight, we'll be providing an update on the project and our schedule. The project includes the results of that public input and the community engagement, how we've been able to incorporate that into the project to the best of our ability. And truth be told, we would have already liked to have been under construction on this project, but we have adjusted our schedule based on some other projects that were going on, some utility projects and things that were going on on 3rd Street. And so that's put us to where we're at right now. But we're excited about the project. I know our project team is ready to provide you with more details about the project, so I'll turn the floor over to them here shortly. And in the interest of full disclosure, although I'm very interested in this project, in this meeting, and I have to be leaving the meeting shortly to participate in another public meeting. But I promise you I'll be back as soon as I can to hopefully be here for part of the presentation and for the question and answer. So again, I thank you for attending this meeting, and we hope you're as excited as we are about this project.
Thank you, Keeney. So now I'd like to let the panelists introduce themselves. First, we'll go to Mario Brown. Hi, Mario.
Hello, good evening. My name is Mario Brown. I'm with the Street Transportation Department, and I'm the Special Projects Administrator, and I'm a part of the project team. Thank you.
Brandy, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Hi, my name is Brandy Rurik. I'm a civil engineer too for the Street Transportation Department. It's wonderful to be here tonight.
And then Jose, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
My name is Jose Rodriguez, and I work with Brandy and Mario here in the Programming and Project Delivery Division of the Street Transportation Department, and also part of the project team. Happy to be here tonight.
And Carl Langford.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Carl Langford. I'm one of the traffic engineering supervisors here with the Street Transportation Department. Happy to be able to join with you all and go over this meeting.
And David Rutkowski, please.
Yeah, I'm David Rutkowski. I'm with Kimley Horn & Associates, and I'm the consultant project manager in charge of the design aspects for the project and creating the construction plans and specifications to get this project underway.
So at the end of the presentation, we will open this up for questions. So to respect everyone's time, we do plan to end this meeting at around 7 o'clock. So we'll ask you to please try and limit your remarks to 1 to 2 minutes. We will call on the people who pre-registered to speak first in the order their requests were received. There are a number of people who have pre-registered to speak. We'll also monitor the chat box to make sure that we get all the questions in the chat. To open the chat box using WebEx, you'll click on the little speech bubble, which should be about the fourth button from the left on your WebEx controls. These should appear in the bottom third of your screen or on the right if you're viewing with a mobile device. So on behalf of the City of Phoenix, welcome to our virtual meeting, and I'd now like to turn it over to Brandy.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for being here tonight. First, I would like to cover the overview of the presentation. I will first cover the history of the project and then segue into the key project objectives. Following that, my consultant, David Rutowski with Kimley Horn, will discuss the overview of design elements. Then I will circle back and discuss anticipated construction impacts. Third Street is a key corridor in the Midtown Phoenix Plan and the Downtown Transportation Plan, and is the #1 planned corridor in the Bicycle Master Plan. This area is also one of the city's economic and development focus areas. Third Street is a design collector street that runs through Midtown Phoenix parallel to the light rail line on Central Avenue and 7th Street. The street serves as a pedestrian connector and an alternative vehicular route into downtown Phoenix. Several major destinations exist along or near the corridor. As seen on the graphic in front of you, the project is located between Garfield Street and Indian School Road. In 2013 and 2014, the city conducted public open houses as part of the Third Street Pedestrian Improvement Pre-Design Report. As part of the Third Street Pedestrian Improvement Pre-Design Report, the study was completed in June 2015. The study documented design alternatives for retrofitting or enhancing bicycle and pedestrian accommodations within the 3rd Street and Van Buren Street corridors. The preferred plan was presented to the community at 2 highly attended open houses at both ends of the corridor in early 2016. Citizens voiced strong support for the plan that provides an excellent opportunity to create a signature corridor that serves multiple transportation modes and a safer, walkable, bikeable corridor connecting neighborhoods, businesses, and places of interest. The preferred plan aligns with the recommendations from existing plans by modifying the street cross section from five vehicular travel lanes to 3 and buffered bicycle lanes. The plan was also to improve area sidewalks and pavement, upgrade street lighting, provide safer marked crossings, and areas for urban design improvements, and expanded on-street parking for business expansion opportunities. Ultimately, the preferred design option selected best accommodates pedestrians, bicyclists, and other multimodal travel on 3rd Street. Furthermore, the city hired Kimley Horn to design the 3rd Street Improvements Project in 2017, and after initial stages of design, held the public meeting in May of 2018. 2 design alternatives were presented at the public meeting. Both alternatives included bicycle lanes, bike lane buffer zones, and new shade structures. Alternative 2 included more shade structures and intersection upgrades. The main difference between Alternative 1 and Alternative 2 was that Alternative 2 included more shade structures, shade trees, benches, and full intersection upgrades. Participants were able to provide feedback via comment card and also through survey to select the preferred shade structure type. Out of the 3 options in front of you, we ended up going with Alternative B, pitched roof, I-beam posts, and screen walls. Throughout the design process, we coordinated with a number of property owners and stakeholders along the project. We coordinated and obtained input from organizations like DT Phoenix, Downtown Phoenix, the Urban Phoenix Project, Phoenix Spokespeople, and Phoenix Community Alliance. More specifically, we worked with Downtown Phoenix on a lot of the landscape that is being proposed on this project, as well as discussing how funds from the previous eBay development at Indian School would be utilized. Ultimately, we decided to apply those funds to the construction of shade structures. We also received a lot of feedback from community members that live or work along the project area, and we worked toward incorporating their comments into the design. And in some cases, we tried to address their concerns as much as possible. Going into key project objectives. The key project objectives are indicated here and include traffic and mobility improvements for pedestrians and bicyclists with reduction in speed, a more welcoming corridor for all users, as well as more efficient use of streets, and also repurposing of the existing street width to provide more amenities such as bike lane buffers and on-street parking. I would now like to introduce my consultant, David Rutowski with Kimley Horn, who will cover the design elements of the presentation. Thank you.
Thanks, Brandy. As Brandy mentioned, the design elements included within this project were chosen to balance the multimodal transportation needs of the local community and the surrounding area. The number of travel lanes along this stretch will be reduced by 1 lane in each direction to enhance the bicycle and pedestrian experience along 3rd Street. Additional changes will include the addition of bicycle lanes that are buffered from the travel lanes on both sides of the roadway, additional landscaping to provide shade cover, upgraded signalization, roadway striping and signage upgrades, enhanced pedestrian crossings to increase visibility, pedestrian and roadway lighting upgrades, and additional on-street parking. I'm not sure where the graphic went for this slide, but as we go through the additional slides, you'll be able to, oh, there it comes, perfect. On this slide, you can see the proposed configuration of the roadway and what it will look like once the project is completed. You'll notice that there will still be a center turn lane to allow access to the properties along the east and west sides of 3rd Street. And the white hatched areas represent the buffers for the bike lanes. In addition to the lane reconfiguration, the enhancement for bicycles will be one of the most visible changes to 3rd Street. These enhancements will include physical delineation of the bike lanes with tubular delineators to restrict traffic movements, and bicycle-specific striping enhancements to increase the visibility of potential conflict points. You'll notice that we are installing bike boxes at 2 locations. These bike boxes allow bicycles to have priority over vehicular traffic in the travel lane at the intersection where transitioning from 3rd Street to either Roosevelt or Virginia, where bike lanes already exist. This slide shows a cross-section of the roadway at an intersection with left and right turn lanes to give you an idea of what the improvements will look like from the driver's perspective. Keep in mind that there's a lot of variation of the buffer widths and the locations of the green bike paint throughout the project limits. And if you would like to see exactly what the project will look like at any location, you can always refer to the roll plot exhibit that is posted to the city's website that shows the entire project limits. This is an example of what you'll find when you review the roll plot, and this area in particular is at Roosevelt and 3rd Street. North is to the right on this image, and you can see where the bike boxes will be installed in the southbound direction. Green paint is being used for conflict areas, and bicycle buffers are being installed as the hatched black striping that you see there, but it will actually be white when the project is completed. It just shows up a little bit better when it's black on our roll plots. You'll also notice the green conflict zone paint is even being used to highlight the bike lanes near the bus stops along the project. In addition to bicycle enhancements, we're also making a lot of pedestrian enhancements, including the installation of continuous rapid flashing beacons at Oak and Vernon. If you've been out there recently, you'll notice at Moreland, the flashing beacons were recently installed in advance of this project and are already in use. So there'll be 3 different locations where we'll have these continuous rapid flashing beacons along the project limits. During this project, the Oak and Vernon beacons will be installed, which will facilitate travel to and from the light rail station at Central and Vernon, and the Oak Street project that the city is doing east of 3rd Street, which is being done to enhance bicycle and pedestrian connectivity as part of a separate project. At each of these locations, when a pedestrian approaches a crossing, they can activate the overhead yellow flashing beacons with the push of a button from either side of 3rd Street to alert oncoming vehicles that there's a pedestrian in the crosswalk. At other locations throughout the project limits, we will be enhancing the visibility of crosswalks with what we refer to as a ladder-style crosswalk. This type of crosswalk can be seen from a much further distance from any intersection. To enhance the accessibility along 3rd Street, we will also be retrofitting all of the existing driveways to provide an accessible route around the back of the sloped driveway surface. The picture on the left gives you an indication of what it's looking like now throughout the project limits. The picture on the right is what will look like once we're completed with the project. Additional accessibility enhancements include the upgrade of almost all of the sidewalk ramps throughout the project limits. Each sidewalk ramp throughout the project limits was evaluated to determine if it was compliant with current accessibility guidelines, and any deficient ramps that were found are being reconstructed accordingly. Wherever possible, we are also installing dual sidewalk ramps at the intersections to enhance connectivity. The traditional ramp layouts found within the project limits predominantly direct pedestrians into the intersection using a single ramp at the midpoint of the radius. The new ramp layouts will direct pedestrians into the roadway in line with the crosswalk, making the crosswalks much more directional. To further enhance the pedestrian experience along 3rd Street, this project will be installing large and small shade structures. The large shade structures will also have seating installed to allow pedestrians a place to rest and escape the sun. The small shade structures design was developed to maximize the shade provided at any time during the day using angled roof panels. Large shade structures will be installed on the east side of 3rd Street, south of McDowell, and south of Earl at each intersection. Small shade structures will be installed at 4 intersections throughout the project limits. At Oak Street, shade structures will be installed along the south side of the intersection near the continuous rapid flashing beacon crossing. At Thomas, we have one shade structure being installed on the southeast corner. At Earl Drive, we will be installing shade structures on the southwest and northeast corners of the intersection, and at Indian School, we will be installing shade structures on the northwest and northeast corners, which will enhance the entrance to the Steele Indian School Park. As previously mentioned, we will be upgrading lighting for pedestrians and vehicles, but predominantly only in the area south of I-10, since lighting already exists to the north of I-10. South of I-10, we will be installing LED pedestrian lighting and replacing and respacing existing street lighting with LED fixtures to make the lighting more consistent. I'm waiting for a cross section of the roadway to appear, and it'll appear in here in a second, but here it is. And in this picture, you can see where the street lighting will be installed in relation to the bike lanes and the sidewalks and the street. One of the major upgrades that we'll be completing with this project is traffic signal replacement. At each of the intersections, we will remove and replace the existing signal poles and equipment. The new traffic signal layouts will unify the pedestrian indications, provide additional signal heads for better signal visibility, and provide push-button activation for pedestrians to activate the pedestrian crossing portion of the signal. Flashing yellow arrows will also be installed with this project to allow vehicles to make left turns after the dedicated left turn phase of the signal expires. Vehicular enhancements will also include more on-street parking and retrofits to existing on-street parking throughout the project limits. In the Lexington area, there is existing diagonal parking that will be reconfigured to allow the installation of a sidewalk. As you can see in the picture on the right, the existing sidewalk access is actually underneath the building overhangs, and there are multiple columns that complicate the use of the sidewalk for pedestrians. The new sidewalk will be constructed just east of the overhang to provide a more accessible route. At Virginia and Windsor, along the east side of 3rd Street, additional on-street parking will be added. The on-street parking spaces provide an additional offset between the traveling vehicles and the bike lanes to further enhance bicycle and pedestrian safety. Physical separation between the bike lane and the parking stalls will be added using a raised pavement marker similar to the half-dome buttons that you see on streets throughout the city. This will help deter any interaction between parking vehicles and the bike lane. You'll also notice that the parking spaces are positioned to the left of the bike lane so that when drivers open their car doors, they're not opening them into the bike lanes. Last but definitely not least are the landscape enhancements that will be part of the project. I mentioned earlier that we will be increasing the amount of shade available along 3rd Street with shade structures, but we'll also be installing around 150 new trees within the project limits. The landscaping within the city's right-of-way will be fully refreshed with new landscape irrigation, decomposed granite, and accent shrubs to unify the landscaping theme. With that, I'd like to turn it back over to Brandy.
Hello, everybody. Yes, I'd like to cover the anticipated construction impacts for the project. All construction-related impacts will be communicated to those residents prior to construction, to those, and also to those businesses and residents adjacent to the active work site. Some of the anticipated impacts include north and southbound traffic along 3rd Street may be reduced to 1 lane in each direction. Left-hand turns may be restricted at times throughout the duration of the project, and sidewalks may be temporarily restricted while being reconstructed. Also, if a business has more than one access point, the contractor may close one driveway at a time. Last but not least, I'd like to discuss the timeline for the project. We've already completed the design on the project. We are working with utility owners to relocate their facilities that are in conflict, as well as working with power service providers for the new streetlight and traffic signals. We will be advertising for construction services in the next few weeks. We're anticipating construction to begin in spring of 2021. Thank you. The city encourages all neighbors and residents to visit the project website for updates at phoenix.gov/streets/3rd Street, and also to utilize the project hotline at 623-825-3444. Thank you for participating. Again, please visit the project website for up-to-date information and construction notices at phoenix.gov/streets/3rd Street. Thank you.
So that concludes our formal presentation, and we'd now like to open it up for questions. We had a pre-register to speak option, so I'd like to call on those individuals first. I also see that we've been peppered with questions in the chat box from the beginning, so we'll try to get to those as well. And to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to speak, again, we'll ask you to please limit your remarks to 1 to 2 minutes, and we will unmute you when it's time to speak. So I will have my associate Ashley's assistance with that. So this is intended to be kind of a high-level overview. So if there are questions about individual properties or individual ingress, egress, we'll probably direct you to the project hotline or our staff to address those questions individually. So now I'm going to make a small change to my associate so she can have the mute and unmute controls. And the first person that was signed up to speak or ask questions, he did not indicate that he wanted to speak or sent in any questions, but the first person is Ken Forcione. And then I have a comment following that by Toby Urvacher, but I believe he is here as well. So let's see if we can get Ken to see if he has any questions. Then Toby. Ken, you're unmuted. Are you there?
I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Do you have any questions?
Great. Again, thank you for letting me participate in the meeting. And first thing I'm going to say that this is fantastic what you guys are doing. I think it's great for the city and great for this area. And I think it's going to be a beautiful project. Of course, there's always a but in there after that. And my but is, I don't hear a lot of talk about, and maybe it's already happened already. I'm newer to the area. I've been here since 2017, so I missed the beginning of this entire project. But my concern is how is the traffic that's actually going to, I guess, less traffic on this road. It's going to be dumped onto other streets like Central Avenue, 7th Street, 3rd Avenue. Has there been consideration about how those streets are going to handle the additional traffic that's now going to leave 3rd Street? Because right now I have to say that I stay off of Central because I think the timing of the lights with the light rail, it's horrible. Traffic at times doesn't move east-west along. I'm along the Osborne and Central area. And if I travel up even east and west on Osborne, traffic lights, there's a lot of sitting, not a lot of traffic moving, times of periods where there's there's not even actually cross traffic, and just sitting there waiting for a light rail that maybe hasn't even come yet. It's just the timing of the lights just doesn't seem right now. And I'm concerned that this traffic that comes off of 3rd will even make that worse. So has there been any kind of consideration or thought about that?
Thank you, Kenneth, for your question. I'd like to relay this to our traffic services department guru. It's Carl Langford.
Thank you, Brandy. Thanks for the question, Ken. So one of the first things to talk about is Central Avenue. Anywhere that you have light rail, it is always a challenge to make sure that you're timing things to function for light rail, to function for traffic, function for pedestrians and everyone that is using the street. Light rail does get priority through there, so there are times that you do get stuck in an area where the light does not change very frequently, especially if you're opposite kind of that light rail aspect. We're constantly working at that and improving it, and it has been improved quite a bit throughout the time. And then as far as just general traffic flow, one misconception that a lot of people have is that when we take a lane from a street such as this, is that all this traffic's just going to magically disappear and go to other streets around. The analysis basically says that the traffic that's using 3rd Street today can fit, generally speaking, within one lane. Some of the street lights will create a little bit of a longer delay, especially during the peak hour aspect. But throughout most of the day, the traffic really is able to flow pretty much how it does today. Historical studies say that the traffic does tend to dip about the first 2 years, but then after 2 years, traffic is back at the same level or even higher oftentimes than what it was before.
Okay, the next speaker is Toby Orvater. I do have a comment that was submitted by Toby. It says, I want to express my full support for this project. The improvements will be great, such as safety for walking and biking in the area. I can't wait for this project to be implemented. Thank you. Toby, if you're on the line and you have an additional comment, you can chime in now, and Ashley will unmute you. We do plan to try and end. Go ahead.
I just want to say thank you again, and I'm super excited for the bike lanes because I ride my bike a lot up and down 3rd Street. I'm just really excited about the whole project, and I think it's going to be great. My only question is, I'm just kind of wondering, what is the target date for completion?
Good
Thank you for your question. Yes, thank you for your question. So the project is going to be essentially complete in a few weeks and go to construction in the spring of 2021.
And then just to add, Brandy, a little bit. So yeah, the construction, the actual physical construction, we're anticipating starting this spring. We're anticipating this project, because of the elements that need to go into it, is going to be around a 9 to 12 months of construction. So we're anticipating the project to be finally completed towards the end of 2021 or the beginnings of 2022.
Okay. We have a statement from Mr. Howard, who had to leave, according to the chat box. So from there, after that, I'm going to read a comment from Christopher Fife. So Mr. Howard's comment, then Mr. Fife's comment, and then I have a comment and question from Mr. Braganza, who I don't believe was able to participate. But Ashley, if you see any of those individuals, we may ask if they have further comments. So Mr. Howard commented, we've been long-standing residents adjacent to the 3rd Street corridor since 1998. We are in favor of the proposed professionally delineated bike lanes, the traffic mitigation, the pedestrian-friendly shade enhancements along 3rd Street. We're eager and wish the entire phased approach could occur as soon as possible. With that said, my only question would be on timing if approved. So I think we just addressed the timing question. And I see now that Mr. Fife wishes to speak. So let's go ahead and unmute. let's go ahead and unmute Fife, and then I'll read the comment from Berganza.
Okay, thank you for allowing me to speak. Yeah, no, I'm very, my family, everyone, we're all very excited about this project. We live in Midtown and go up and down 3rd Street into downtown, walking, biking with kids. And sometimes it feels a little unsafe trying to cross such a wide street and even just crossing the area into downtown. But I think this is not only going to help connect Midtown to downtown, but also the neighborhoods that are on the east side of 3rd Street. There's a lot of people that kind of go back and forth between those neighborhoods, and easier to light rail and everything. And I think it's just going to integrate a lot of these districts a lot more. So I'm pretty excited about that. I did want to comment about, I know there's a lot of concern about traffic, and what I've seen the problems with traffic, if anything, on 3rd Street as of right now has been the lack of turn lanes in certain areas. So one, I think in this case, we actually are going to have, even though we're reducing travel lanes, which don't necessarily cause a reduction in travel, but the addition of turn lane for areas that don't have it right now, is that going to be implemented all the way down the, at least from, I'd say, McDowell to Indian School? And the other question I had was, I guess it's a 9-10 month schedule, but is it going to start on one end and end at another, or is that to be determined? Thanks.
Thank you for your question. I'd like to relay this question over to Traffic Services. Carl, are you there?
Thank you, Brandy, and thank you for the question. Yes, a two-way center turn lane that will be a left turn lane at signalized intersections and such is being implemented throughout the project. So yes, those extra turn lanes will actually allow traffic to move more smoothly throughout the project area once this transition happens.
And then the only thing I wanted to add, Heather, because I believe he was asking about speed reduction. Once the project is completed, the new speed limit that is being proposed is going to be 35 miles per hour. And in relation to how the construction is going to be sequenced, we do not know that at this point. We'll have more information. As Brandy was saying, we're the design is being finalized, and we're moving on. We're going to be advertising this project, and we're going to be going through a procurement process to select a contractor for construction services. And after that, we'll be able to have more information in relation of the actual where the project is going to start and how progress is going to move forward. And we should be able to provide that information on our website. So definitely, we encourage everybody to come back and stay up to date. And as construction moves along, we'll be notifying all the property owners of upcoming impacts.
Thank you, Jose. Mr. Berganza had submitted a statement that he would like read into the record. I would like to express strong opposition to reduction in the travel lanes. I have no objection and encourage the addition of bike and pedestrian improvements, but not at the expense of the two existing vehicular lanes in both directions. We have shared those comments and the rest of your comments with the project team. So I'd like to go to one of the questions that I believe was just addressed, but having to do with the single lane and left turns. Because the project adds a center two-way left turn lane, that should not back up traffic, which was what Mr. Berganza's question was, because you'll be able to make your left turns from that center left turn lane. Carl, do you have anything to add to that?
No, Heather, that is correct. And in general, this does provide greater safety throughout the project as well, as you don't have those left turns now waiting in a through lane where somebody's coming up from behind and unexpectedly finding somebody stopped waiting to turn. That person can get out of that through traffic to be able to wait and stage there to make your left turns.
Thank you. The next two people who pre-registered are Miguel Soto-Cano and then Robert Warnicki.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity to speak my mind a little bit. We've been a long-time resident of the area for about 10 years, and we're very excited about the project. As I use 3rd Street to go to work to downtown almost every day as a driver and as a cyclist, and I'm just really excited to be able to use it more as a cyclist now and as a pedestrian. So we really have noticed that 3rd Street is kind of a dangerous street as it is right now, so we're excited about having more of a pedestrian approach in that street. So I appreciate your work and very excited to see this project come through.
Thank you. Do we have Robert here?
Yes. Yes, you have Robert Warnicki here. Am I on?
Hello. You are on. Please proceed.
Everybody can hear me?
We can.
Oh, I'm really sorry about that. Okay. Thank you very much for this opportunity to speak. I'm a longtime resident of the city of Phoenix and basic agitator. I'm an attorney. I've practiced law in the city. My office has been on 3rd Street for years, and now it's on the corner of 2nd Street in Catalina. I'm the president of La Hacienda Historic District and part of the Neighborhood Historic Coalition, Phoenix Historic Neighborhoods Coalition. I participated in the 3rd Street Promenade project back in 2010, which I think this thing sprang from. I told you all that this was a crazy idea to get rid of traffic lanes, but that bike lanes and pedestrian improvements were a great idea. I never got invited back to anything with Reinvent Phoenix after I told them that. So anyway, I sent 7 questions that I'm not going to bother reading out loud. I hope they can be taken into the record, and I hope that the city can provide appropriate responses to me after this. I don't have to have however many participants listening to them and have you people trying to scramble for specific answers. I was given the opportunity to submit questions, and you make me sit down with the computer and I write out long questions.
We will answer your question.
I would appreciate that, but you don't have to do it right now. My major point today is that 3rd Street is a very dangerous street. I really don't know who these people are that are crazy enough to ride bikes on it. However, you're not dealing with the real problem we have in Midtown Phoenix. The real problem we have in Midtown Phoenix is that in the late 70s and early 80s, we added reverse lanes to the 7s, and we turned the 7s into basically freeways to get traffic into and out of the downtown area. So now you're trying to make a pretty spot on 3rd Street, but you haven't addressed the problem of the reverse lanes on the 7s. It would be a lot cheaper and more efficient to first solve the problem of the 7s that those cause for pedestrians and bike riders and even local traffic. And you would be doing Midtown neighborhoods a much better service than you are with the 3rd Street Improvement Project. And then the second thing that I would like to have specifically addressed is, what are we going to do at the corner of Thomas and 3rd Street with the 5,000 car parking garage that we allowed to be built at 2nd Street and Catalina that dumps the vehicles out onto 3rd Street every night? And I'm concerned that we are going to encourage traffic through La Hacienda Historic District, which is the streets of Verde and Catalina between 3rd Street and 7th Street, just north of Thomas. So those are the 2 kind of things that I just wanted to float out there, given the opportunity to speak tonight. Thank you very much.
Mr. Warnicki, thank you for your comments. And we have about 14 minutes left, and we have quite a few questions and comments. So we'll try to move through them. And any that we don't answer, we'll try to answer by email. So next up is Mr. Foxcroft, Robert Foxcroft. After that will be a statement by Cav Smith, and then we'll call on Tara Walstead. So Kyle Foxcroft, a statement that I'll read from Cav Smith, and then Tara Walstead.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for presenting to us this evening. I just wanted to voice my concern for the fact that the majority of the bike lanes are not going to be protected, it seems, with some sort of barrier that cars cannot drive over. Studies show that people are more likely to bike when a bike lane feels safe to them. I am very excited that we will have parking protected bike lanes. I think that is maybe the second or third instance that we would have something like that in the city of Phoenix. So I think that is really awesome. But again, I'm concerned that we aren't using a more pronounced raised barrier to protect cyclists. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Yes, in the project, we will be using flexible delineator posts. Were you aware of that, sir?
Yeah, I think those are pretty insufficient. I live right off of 15th Avenue and have seen plenty of those destroyed by vehicles. So I think that we need to really start looking at something that keeps cars from entering a bike lane at all.
And we appreciate your comment, Mr. Foxworth. Like you mentioned, this project is not proposing an actual physical barrier between the bicycle lanes and the vehicle travel lanes. However, a good majority of the length of the bike lane, it is a buffer bike lane, so there's a good clear space to separate vehicle traffic from the bicycle. So that ideally that helps enhance some of the safety aspect and the comfort that it provides to the bicyclist. So, but definitely appreciate your comment and your preference for in the future for a physical barrier to be implemented.
So I'm going to read the statement from Cav Smith, then we'll call on Tara Walstead, and after Tara, we'll call on Catherine Halpin. Mr. Cav Smith, well, actually, I might have misgendered. Anyway, Cav Smith wrote, I support this project. It's been a long time coming. This project has been pushed out a couple of years, so I was afraid it had been abandoned. However, I'm very glad it's finally coming to be. Many drivers are using this as an alternative to Central Avenue and 7th Street, so I'm glad we're protecting the pedestrian and cyclist community. I fully support the traffic calming aspect along with the shade structures and landscaping. So next I will call on Tara Walstead. Tara, if you're here, Ashley will unmute you and you can speak.
All right, thank you. Are you able to hear me?
We can hear you just fine, thank you.
Correct. Excellent. All right, well, both as someone who can't drive and someone who's concerned for the environment, I fully support any efforts to increase the safety and accessibility of roads for pedestrians and bicyclists. I regularly walk along or around 3rd Street for exercise, recreation, errands, or to get to the bus and light rail. I think all the planned improvements for 3rd Street are fantastic, and they'll make it a much safer place for anyone not in a car. My one question is if it's possible to reduce the speed limit of 3rd Street in addition to these other improvements. I think I heard someone earlier say that it's still going to be 35. Lower speed limits are shown to reduce injuries or fatalities of accidents, both between 2 cars or between a car and a pedestrian or a bicyclist. Now, I don't know if that's within the scope of this project, but if that's something that's possible, I would strongly suggest it. All right, thank you.
Thank you for your question. Yeah, I'd like to relay your question over to Carl Langford if he's available. Maybe he can help answer the question about lowering the speed limit.
Yes, thank you very much for the question. At this point in time, the plan is to have the speed limit stay the same throughout the project, but it will be evaluated shortly after the project is completed to see if and when we should make some change or adjustment to it.
Next is Catherine Halpin. Okay, I'm seeing that we do not have Catherine on the line. So I'd like to go to Albert Granillo, who's hosting our Spanish language line. And Albert, I'd like to see if you have any questions from any of the participants who might be listening on your line.
Heather, thank you
Go
for the
ahead.
mic. I currently do not have any questions on the Spanish line.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you hosting that. I have a couple of more comments that were submitted by email. We have a statement from Michael Marinos, who said he has a business that serves a large visually impaired community, and he'd like to know how has landscaping been modified or how will it be maintained to prevent impacts to visually impaired pedestrians?
Okay, thank you for the question. On the project, we're going to be implementing a number of shade structures, and we're going to be planting a large number of trees. I would hope that that would definitely help the situation, but I may need to hear the question again if I'm not answering it correctly, sir.
The comment was, how has landscaping been modified or how would it be maintained to prevent impacts to visually impaired pedestrians? And I think David Rutkowski, you might be able to speak to that question.
Yeah, there is in this maybe Jose can chime in on the maintenance aspect, but I will say that one of the scopes of work that we put into the project was to be able to maintain the existing trees that are to remain, to be able to clear the sidewalks with the project. A lot of the landscaping that we'll be installing will be new landscaping, so the trees will be much smaller. So they'll be able to be shaped over time to keep the sidewalks clear and whatnot with the city's regular maintenance that they do throughout the area.
Yeah, and just to add to that, just real quick, Heather. One of the things that is not easily seen or recognized is that, a lot of the landscape that's along 3rd Street, it's a combination of, and actually after the project is going to be done as well, it's going to be a combination of landscape that is maintained by private property and landscape that is going to be turned over and be maintained by the city. So as David was mentioning earlier, the city will definitely maintain all large bushes and trees so that their overhang do not conflict with the sidewalk. And as part of this project, one of the elements of work is we're going to be looking at some of those overgrown trees and do treatment as necessary.
Okay, I got unmuted now, so I refined my question. This is Michael Marinos. So I do work with a large portion of the Phoenix blind community, and I help them with their finances. And one of the things that we've ran into was with the central project, and I see it being mirrored here. And it was with some of the tree choices and the way that they were installed. They weren't anchored properly. So when monsoon season rolls around, the trees get taken down or branches get taken down. And I've had multiple clients be injured because they run into a tree branch or because a tree came down and they couldn't get past it. And so I've seen a lack of maintenance with a lot of that and a lack of just proper installation of trees. And I don't want to see that with this project as well. That was my main concern. My secondary concern was kind of shared with Robert Warnicki about that left turn from Catalina onto 3rd Street because of all the 5 o'clock traffic that rushes out of there from the parking garages. It's already a bottleneck. And reducing a lane might create more of a bottleneck. And I don't know if that's something that the city is planning to address.
Thank you, Mr. Marino. So we appreciate your questions. We'll take those into consideration. If anybody has a response to his comments, I'll invite those now. And then next, we'll start taking questions that came from the chat box.
Yes, Heather, this is Carl. I can respond a little bit concerning the Catalina left turn with that parking garage. So because of the signal at Thomas, there is a backup that does happen through there. At Thomas itself, you will still have the turn lanes available that are there today to accommodate a fair amount of that traffic. During peak hour, will it back up and impact potentially turn specs at Catalina? More than likely, yes, and that's kind of what the models show. How much of an impact, that's kind of hard to tell exactly at the moment with everything. And that's one of the cases where just living close to downtown at certain rush hour times, it is going to be a challenge to get in and around in some areas. We are doing everything we can to improve that as best as possible.
Thank you. We have a question from the chat box. Will the rework of asphalt along 3rd Street be rubberized for traffic noise reduction through the residential area?
So with that, Heather, the majority of the length of the project, what we're proposing is an actual microsurfacing treatment, which is a rehabilitation technique. There are some areas where we're going to be reconstructing the asphalt because the existing street is in bad shape. So we got to definitely take care of that. But this microsurfacing treatment is really a surface reconditioning of the street that's going to do both things. It's going to allow and extend the life of the existing pavement that's out there. And it's going to give us kind of like a brand new canvas to implement this new lane configuration. But this will not be considered a rubberized overlay.
Thank you. We have another question asking whether the bike lanes are protected from vehicular traffic by physical barriers.
Yes, thank you for the question. The bicycle lanes will be protected with flexible delineator posts, but not through a form of a physical barrier.
We have another question. Can we assume that there will be sidewalks on both sides of the street for the entire length of the project?
Yes, thank you for your question. I'd like to relay that question over to my consultant, David Rutowski, please.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, we will have sidewalks in both directions along 3rd Street. And as part of the project, we're going to be removing and replacing cracked and broken panels of sidewalk as well to give it a very consistent look and feel and smooth out some of the bumps that you see out there today. So in fact, in certain areas where there's a sidewalk that's around 4 feet, we're going to be removing and replacing that sidewalk to increase the width to 5 feet so that we have a uniform width of sidewalk surface throughout the project as well.
Great. Next question is having to do with the school, the ASA Academy on the corner of 3rd Street and McDowell. She says she's very happy about the Willetta stoplight, but is concerned about impacts to students who attend ASA and anticipating and planning impacts for pickup and drop-off during the school day while construction's underway.
Thank you for the question. I think I'd like to relay this question over to David Rutowski with Kimley Horn.
Yeah, during construction is, I guess that's a question at this point. As far as the construction phasing the roadway and how that gets worked out, you know, we have certain restrictions and certain lane configurations that the contractors have to keep open, you know, during peak times of the day. And there are always potential reductions at non-peak times so that they can work on certain pieces of the project. I will say this though, we did look at the traffic coming into and out of the school, and this is actually one area of the project where we did keep 2 lanes in the southbound direction to make sure that we had additional capacity to so that we didn't constrict everybody into 1 lane when there are potential backups from the drop off and pickup times in the morning and in the evening. So there is additional capacity in the roadway at this area. In fact, the road is actually much wider in this area than it is at other places within the project. So there should be, adequate room for the contractors to be able to keep that flow moving to reduce the amount of impact during construction to people in those drop-off and pickup lines in the mornings and in the evenings.
And along those lines, David, when we go into construction of a project, there's a number of rules that we try to follow and strive by, like Brandy was mentioning earlier, for those properties with more than one entry point. We try to alternate the construction of those so that access, at the end of the day, access is always going to be maintained. Either we have to reconstruct the driveway, we'll do it in half to be able to maintain egress and ingress, or we'll be able to work weekends if needed to avoid impacts to the school. And during construction of the sidewalk, we definitely strive to maintain pedestrians on the same side of the street during construction periods. So that's one of the things that you can expect. Yeah, but nonetheless, yeah, there will be lane restrictions on and off throughout the life of the project.
So we have another question from the chat box, and we are a little bit over time, but if you all can be patient with me for a little bit more, I think we can get through all of the questions. One question is, we're Alvarado Road residents and use the light rail. We're thrilled to learn about the Oak Street pedestrian crossing. Is there a timeline of when each feature will be implemented? And Brandy, you might want to pop up that slide about the timeline for this.
Yes, thank you for your question. So we're looking to start construction close to 2021. I don't have specifics on when the hawks will be installed. Is that something that they would like us to look into further?
Yeah, Heather, and to the audience, it's a little bit earlier for us to be able to give an actual a specific time frame of when the LMs will be turned on. There's a lot of things we got to take into consideration. Not only do we have to build the actual facilities, we need to complete a lot of the work in order to be able to complete all the striping, because those type of crossings are not going to end up being turned on and being put into service until most of the facility is in, which is going to be towards the latter part of the project. So again, based on the timelines that we were discussing earlier, that we're looking at, the end of 2021, early 2022 for the construction to be over. So.
Okay, I think we've covered all of the questions that were submitted both in the chat box and in advance to the extent that we could get to them today. There are a couple of people we'll need to follow up with, but I'd like to go ahead and turn it back over to our Street Transportation Director for closing remarks.
All righty. I apologize for not being able to be here a little more. I just, my other meeting went a little long, but I'm glad we had the participation that we did for this meeting. Better put on my glasses so I look the same at the beginning of the meeting as the end of the meeting. But thank you all for being here and your participation in this process and learning a little bit more about that. I know we're excited to get moving on this project and move forward. I know it's still going to be a little time before we're out there doing the construction, but I know this is something that we can't come soon enough for us. So I wanted to thank everybody who's in attendance here, our project team as well, for providing this information to the public.
Thank you, Keeney. Again, the project website is phoenix.gov/streets/3RD Street, 3rd Street. So when we end this session, I just want to let everybody know the attendees who joined through the internet will receive a survey from WebEx. WebEx is the virtual meeting provider, and that survey is about the quality of their service. So we won't be able to see any comments that you submit to them because that survey doesn't actually come to us. But we do appreciate genuinely your participation tonight. Thank you very much for your attention, and we do plan to post this presentation to our website at that 3rd Streets, phoenix.gov/streets/3RD Street. Thank you for your time tonight.